Hey, what's up guys, it's Kerry from Phoenix and Beau, and today I'm going to show you how to shave with a safety razor. I'm going to demonstrate and just talk a bit about the equipment that you'll need in order to enjoy a 3-pass shave with a safety razor. So I'll speak about the equipment that you're going to need, how you prepare for your shave, and then the shave itself, and then the post-shave aspect. Sounds fairly involved, it isn't. But if you're new to wet shaving, which is really who this video is for, it's for guys and girls who are new to traditional wet shaving, then this is really just a step-by-step demonstration of the method that I use. The beautiful thing about wet shaving is that there is a lot of nuance to it. So by all means, adopt my method, and then really from there you'll find your own way. You'll find what works for you. The equipment that works for you, and the methods and the little shortcuts or the little tips and tricks that you might learn as you become more experienced as a wet shaver. So for our wet shave, we're going to use a number of items. To begin with, you're going to need a double-edge safety razor. Now in this instance, I'm using an Edwin Jagger double-edge safety razor. This is something that I would consider to be very good for beginners. It's very user-friendly. Going in the actual razor itself, we'll need a blade. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using probably my favourite double-edge blade, which are the Perma-Sharp Supers, available from any good stockist. These are really nice blades. I like them because they give a smooth shave, they're very effective, and they last quite a long time. I can sometimes get as many as 10 shaves out of a single blade. So I think they provide excellent value. You're then going to need a shaving brush. Now today I'm going to be using my own Phoenix and Beau brush. This is a synthetic fibre knot, a tuxedo knot. Tuxedo meaning just the black and white finish here. This is a resin handle. From memory it's a 24mm knot, which means that's the width of the knot. Has a very nice backbone, which relates to the stiffness, and we want a good degree of stiffness so that we can exfoliate the skin as we're building our lather on our face. So after the brush, you're going to need an excellent shaving soap, and the soap really is designed to cushion your skin against the blade as it passes over and chops your beard, and also to provide slickness. And the slickness means that your blade should be running smoothly over the face. So a nice amount of cushion, protective qualities, and then slickness to provide the slipperiness. Our soaps provide both of those things in a great quantity. And then really some ancillary aspects to wet shaving. I like to have something called an alum block, which is one of these. Alum is a salt mineral, and it is an astringent. So it's good to have on hand for 2 reasons. The first is if you nick yourself, so if you just cut yourself ever so slightly or just a tiny little weeper, you could have you could have a spot on your skin or something like that you just catch, and that'll just start to bleed very lightly. Alum, being an astringent, it will constrict the blood vessels, and when you wet it and apply it to the area just lightly, that will close that cut or that nick. You've got to be mindful that regardless of ability, nicks and weepers are fairly common in wet shaving. They're just part of the territory, and you could be doing this for years, and you might get a nick or a weeper. So these are very good to have on standby. Also, they're good to if you wet it and just rub your fingers on it, it acts as excellent grip. So when you're gripping your razor, it just increases that level of grip nicely. So that's just a little tip. So after we've finished our shave, we need to give some thought to how we're going to treat our skin, depending on where you live, your skin type, the season, the weather. You might have very dry skin, it could be very cold outside. You might want to put some sort of post-shave lotion, and there are various types. Some which are gel-like, some which are cream-like, or some which are thicker and more unctuous. You've then got aftershave splashes and so on. And then right at the end of the shave, what I like to do is I like to use an aftershave. This is my own aftershave, which is denatured alcohol, witch hazel, aloe vera juice, sodium lactate, vegetable glycerin, and panthenol. These will be available via our store soon. But an aftershave is important because, one, they smell good, and secondly, they act as a brilliant astringent. So again, like alum, they close the pores, they constrict blood vessels. So again, you might have a little nick or a weeper under here perhaps. The aftershave will help close that. And they also lend themselves to being antiseptic, and they just help with skin hygiene. Okay, so now that we've had a look at what you'll need to enjoy an excellent shave, we need to think about how you can best prepare your skin for the up and coming chop. So I always advocate having a warm shower before we shave, and the reason behind that is because it softens the skin, and also importantly it softens the beard as well, it softens the hairs. It's good to rehydrate the skin in that sense, so it can be a warm shower, it can be, you know, a decent wash in the sink or a bath really, but it's all about hydrating the skin and getting the beard softened. Whilst we're having our shower, I always like to soak my brush. Now, a Star Wars cup isn't necessary. It's whatever you fancy popping your brush in. Okay, but in here is a quantity of water. The cup's about half full, and I just put my brush in there. Now, it's important that we don't use really hot water in there because we don't want to damage the knot, in as much as we don't want to damage the glue, which is what the knot is secured inside the handle by. Warm water is sufficient. We're hydrating the bristles, and really that's just a practice that I've done for some time. Some would say that it's not necessary for synthetic brushes, but really, again, it's about fine-tuning your own method, but that's something that I like to do. The next step is to apply our razor blade to the actual razor itself. So the Edwin Jagger double-edged safety razor is a 3-piece razor. So we have the top cap here, the bottom base plate, and then obviously the handle itself. So we're going to take our new razor, our new blade. I've already taken this Perma Sharp out of its wrapping, and then we just pop it onto the top there, like this. We take the base plate, put them together, take our handle, and there we go. We're good to go. It's always good just to take a moment just to make sure that the razor blade is correctly seated and lined up properly, but I'm happy with that. Right, so I'm ready to shave now. I'm going to squeeze out roughly half the water from my brush so it's nicely hydrated. In this instance, I'm going to build my lather inside my jar of soap. Okay, so I take my nicely hydrated brush and then I just apply even pressure, and in a circular motion I start to build my lather, and you can see how much water I've got in there. It's starting to drip out a little bit. I don't want the larger bubbles. What I'm trying to achieve here is a thick, dense lather, okay, a bit like Greek yogurt in terms of consistency. Don't worry about the lather dripping out. And ordinarily I wouldn't be lathering with my jar positioned in this way, but this is really just to show you what I'm after. Now I like to face lather, and what that means is once I've loaded, it's called loading your brush, once I've loaded my brush, now I can feel in here that there's a weight of lather. The knot has absorbed, it's soaked up the soap, and it's started to generate a lather. And what I like to do is I take this and then I apply it to my face. And what I'm doing is I'm working the brush into my skin with two objectives in mind. The first is to increase the volume of my lather, and the second is to further prepare my skin for the up and coming shave. Now the good thing about a brush with decent backbone, so we don't want a brush which is too floppy and just splays all over our face. The good thing about a brush with decent backbone is that it helps to exfoliate the skin further, in my opinion, which is a good thing. This smells lovely. It's nice and bright and fresh. There we go, we're ready, right. I like to just kind of clear the lather out from my lips because I'm not so keen on that sensation over my mouth. This is what I've got left in my brush. Lots of really dense lather. Okay, now that's going to be plenty for a 3-pass shave. Speaking of which, some shaving terminology. So this is a 3-pass shave. So the first part is going to be with the grain. The second pass will be across the grain, and then the final pass will be against the grain. So if you consider the way that your hair grows on your face, that could be described as a grain. So if you rub your skin beneath your jawline or over your cheek, you can feel the way that the hair grows. Okay, so the least amount of resistance, that's with the grain. So you've then dialed in your direction of shaving with the grain. Going across the grain is perpendicular to that angle, so at 90 degrees, and then against the grain is as you might anticipate or might expect, it is directly against the grain. So with the grain, across the grain, against the grain. Now in terms of how we seat our razor on our face, if you start with the razor flat against your face and then tilt it downwards, and then you will feel the blade itself actually engage with the skin, and you will find that ideal angle for your face and for the structure, the way that the contours of your face. For me, it's a fairly shallow angle. If I steepen it up, so I'm approaching, going more towards 90 degrees, then that increases the level of aggression. So I keep my angle very shallow. I apply little to no pressure. I don't want to be digging this into my skin, pushing it in for obvious reasons, as we're going to damage the skin and more readily cut ourselves. So I'm going with the grain. I'm paying attention to the direction of growth of my beard. And I'm going with that. In terms of holding my razor, I use more pressure between my forefinger and my thumb. That's where most of my pressure comes from. And then my other fingers just help me guide the razor over my face and adjust the angle as I go. When I come beneath my jawline, you might notice me kind of tilting my head, and what I'm looking for there is tension. So tension beneath my jawline to tension my skin. If my skin's loose, if I'm dipping my chin, then the skin is more likely to move around and get cut. So I want a degree of tension in there. Some people like to, use their fingers to tension the skin. It's what works for you, but I find that by tilting my head, gets enough tension into my skin line beneath here. Okay, that's the first pass complete. What I do now is I rinse my face with warm water, ready to prepare a second amount of lather. Once I've rinsed my face, I can feel my skin and kind of assess which areas are still heavy with beard. So under here, for me, always holds on to a difficult amount of beard to get. So I know which areas I need to go for. So I'm going to apply a second amount of lather. I'm just going to paint this on this time now. I don't need to rub it into my skin. You know, by all means do that if you want to, and you'll find what works for you. This is just a suggested guide and method for yourself. But for me, I like to paint it on for my second pass. Lovely. Now my fingertips are a little bit slippery now where I've been shaving, so I'm just going to take my alum block with wet fingers, and that instantly dries them up and boosts the amount of grip that I've got to hold on to this. So now I'm going to go across the grain. So perpendicular to the angle that you found and discovered that was with the grain. So the reason why we advocate a 3-pass shave is because it's all about gradual beard reduction. It's not about getting everything off in one pass. Sometimes you only have time for a 1-pass shave, and I totally get that. I'm that person also. So you can probably still hear my razor picking up hair, which is what I mean about gradual beard reduction. Wet shaving is about shaving as well as you can, not as quickly as you can, in my opinion. Okay, that's the end of the second pass, and that was the across the grain pass. Now, again, just to repeat, I'm going to rinse my face down with warm water, check to see where I've still got some growth, the areas that I need to work on, and then go for my against the grain and final pass. So this area on my face, just under here, this is a tricky area to get. Just because the contours, the way that my neckline flows and the way that my face is put together, basically, these are always problem areas for me, and I have to pay special attention to them. It's quite common that if I'm not careful, I'll get a bit of irritation there. So, you know, it's always worth taking extra time and care over those sensitive areas that you'll work out where they are on your own face. So again, I'm going to paint the lather on. Okay, final pass against the grain. Now for this, I'm going to start lower down on this area of my neck. That's just personal preference. So I'm being very careful here being very light on pressure. Noisy. There's still a lot of hair down there. This is the problem area for me. It holds on to my beard. It's difficult to get to. But this third pass always gets it for me. Okay, moving up onto my cheeks. That's the third pass done. So that feels really good. That feels like a great shave. I'm done now. So I'm just going to quickly rinse off with warm water. And then what I do is I pour the remnants of the lather from my knot. Now, that might not look like much to you, but we'll pull it out. And what I use this as is, I suppose, as a lotion or a moisturiser really, just whilst I'm going on to the next step of my shave, which will be to clean my equipment down. Cleaning and looking after our kit is really important because, you know, it will last longer and work better for you. So where I live in Hertfordshire, England, the water's really hard and lime scales all of my razors up quite quickly. So I just let this kind of soak into my face whilst I'm cleaning my equipment down. And what I mean by that is with my brush, I'm rinsing it out with cold water. And then I'm just making sure that I've squeezed out all of the water. And I let that sit in a manner either on its side so that it can drip out, or ideally inverted. And then we also need to take care of our soap. So this is how the soap was left when I was building my lather. I'm going to rinse this out with cold water. And I want to make sure that I've got all of the excess lather out of there. And then I store that. I put the lid on its bottom, so to speak, and then I store it inverted with the lid off, and I leave it overnight. Now what I do is I rinse my face with cold water. And that kind of concludes the shave. When I'm drying my face down, I don't vigorously rub my face. My preference is to kind of pat dry it. That's just so, you know, I've just dragged a surgically sharp piece of steel over my skin. I don't want to really aggravate the skin any further, so I pat dry. My skin type and the weather here at the moment, for me, doesn't require me to use a lotion or any type of post-shave balm. However, what I always use is an aftershave, so I'm going to use our own aftershave here. Generous splash in the hands, and then rub it into the area, just shaved, really nicely soaked into the skin. There we go, so that concludes the shave. Just a quick summary then. We have the consideration of our equipment, so we're always going to need, obviously, a razor of some sort. If you're just starting out in this, I'd recommend you use a user-friendly double-edged razor, such as something by Edwin Jagger or Merkur. Then we need to have a brush, a shaving brush. Really, that's down to your preference. My own preference are synthetic knots, but you've got a whole world of different types of knots: boar, badger, horsehair, and so on. And then the next thing we need is an excellent shaving soap. I would naturally, being Kerry from Phoenix and Beau, recommend our own soaps. Your face will thank you for it. After the soap, we also have our post-shave considerations, so some form of lotion if your skin type requires that type of feeding, you know, if it's dry or cold where you live. So a decent balm with natural ingredients inside will be essential there. And then just to finish everything off and act as an astringent, close everything up, you will want a good aftershave. I hope you like this video. If you've got any questions, please ask them below. Please feel free to like. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and you're always very welcome to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, shave right, feel brilliant.